Woke up this morning wishing I could just pack up and get moving, but I got 4 days of unedited footage and I gotta catch up. Looks like it's foggy this morning, and then the forecast today is saying it's gonna get up to 84. I also really can't wait till I get to the drier climate. This thing is soaking wet and there's no way I'm getting it dry. I'm also playing everybody's favorite game called When Will Matt Run Out of Fuel? It gets really hard to estimate, especially when I have these days off trail or where I'm eating in town. This trail is going to be the death of me video-wise. Unfortunately, with the more common hotel and trail angel stays, I keep running way behind on edits. I was, I think, 4 days behind this morning. Now I'm only one, but still, that can be hard to overcome when some days out here it feels like the most memorable thing that happened was the audiobook I was listening to. And because I'm determined that there has to be at least a basic level of quality, because I can't stand the lazy crap I've seen from other people, I have to go through them at least twice. So I'm actually watching my own videos more than all of you fine folks. On rare occasions I can one and done them, but usually not, especially if it's sometime when I was around town or with trail angels or things like that, where I feel really uncomfortable jamming a camera in anybody's face. So I have to go back and figure out from still photos and things and add voiceovers and then go through the entire thing a couple of times to try and make sure it hangs together coherently. It also seems like I am bordering on mosquito season here. Last night there were a bunch of them hovering outside of the tent. Got to go on a murdering spree when I finally got in and sealed everything up. And then this morning there were just these giant ants everywhere. Could actually hear them crawling around. Though the good news as far as the videos is, when Jen is here, we tend to divide up the labor a little more. So she'll run out for coffee or do the resupply or other things while I'm busy editing. Versus when it's just me, I'm stuck doing all that. I just have to struggle to stop saying stupid things and trying to make her laugh and get some actual work done. Seriously, there's a bloody creek back there. Doesn't anybody use a filter anymore? I will say, so this section has been far more easygoing than Ohio. There's some steep ups and downs, but I mean, come on, what do you expect? You go hiking anywhere. But at least the ground, while wet, is fairly solid. So I'm not sliding around. There's been one or two places where it was a little bit bad. It looks like they used to have steps on some of these sustained inclines, but they've eroded out because that's what happens if you don't do switchbacks and you try and cut too steeply. And as a result, there is just rebar sticking up, waiting to try and trip you. Pretty sure nobody had rebar impalement on their masochist disaster bingo this time around. I do have a few more miles of spitting out cobwebs here. And then I'm back on the road. It looks like it makes a beeline pretty much directly south, road walking to New Albany. And assuming that I am able to make my usual 22 to 25 mile goal, I should be on the west end of town. I'm hoping to hit a Walmart on the way through. There's a few things like fuel canisters and dude wipes that are better off bought there. And then I'm going to try and rejigger my resupplies, so I'm just hitting Dollar Generals a little more often instead of trying to do the Walmarts and the grocery stores as much as I have been. The reason is, while those often have better fresh stuff, I'm having to repackage because there's bigger bags of, crackers and cookies and things like that. And that has resulted in me overbuying or having things I have to toss out too often, versus the reality is at Dollar General, because they're cheap asses, their trail mix is a one-day portion for me, basically, the peanuts and M&M one. And a lot of their snacks are actually like that. So I can just run in, grab some things off the shelf, shove that on the top of my pack, and I can just keep moving. The quick hit resupplies like that used to not matter as much because, okay, I would be charging my batteries while I was repackaging. But since I have been starting to carry more batteries and I can stretch hotel to hotel a little easier, I haven't been bothering. I'll plug my phone in here and there just to kind of stretch things. I've rarely been in danger of actually running my batteries down, even with all the video activity. because you never realize how much battery power you go through until you're doing 20 minutes of video and then editing it in iMovie every single day. And we are now just 5 days away from Tater's arrival, which I'm happy for, because the reality is her end of the school year is always really, really busy. So I end up hearing from her less and less. Whereas normally we can, text back and forth and talk on the phone occasionally. So I have been missing her even more. I seriously think I must have 20 spiders on me at any given point. Even waving my trekking poles around, I still end up in spider webs. Plus side, my feet are continuing to improve. Still feeling a few things on my right foot, but I was able to remove almost all of the tape. It just seems like I always got something I'm struggling against. I mean, hell, my entire life I have been prone to ingrown toenails, for example. And there's nothing more fun than hiking on the start of an ingrown toenail for 2 days and having to fix it with a pocket knife in your tent. And Jen and I both have had to deal with extended rounds of planer warts on trail, trying to fix them as I go. I was in so much pain going through Florida, going through all those swamps, trying to burn those off, not wanting to take time off to just sit around and hope they healed. Zach had messaged me this morning asking how my feet were doing and asking some questions about one of the state forests back in Ohio, saying, walking in pain is still walking. If you can make it through 20 some miles and not be doing additional damage, I'll take that over waiting around to be 100%, because if I ever waited around to be 100%, I just wouldn't be able to do this sort of thing. After about the first week, I am almost always exhausted to one level or another, always juggling minor issues, all part of the adventure. See the sticker. This is a little bit of a nicer official site, other than the illegal fire pit with all the trash in it, of course. Unlike Jen, I do not dislike campfires, but they are pretty much always a mess because people think, I can just burn my trash. And even if it's burnable, it never fully burns. And usually people are tossing, plastic or foil or other things in there. And so you end up with a giant stinking bug, rodent / bear attractor. I had an interesting conversation with the Yellowstone Ranger when I was out on the Continental Divide Trail. And he was saying, conservation management is all built around focusing usage into a limited area, limited number of spots. And when it comes to trail, I totally get that and agree with that. And generally when bushwhacking in the Sierra, we take the trail as close as we can, and then you go cross country, trying to stay to durable ground as much as you can, things like that. But when it comes to campsites, there is a certain usage level like the AT where there's just nothing else you can do but try and get the hordes to all sit on top of each other. But it just makes such a mess. Versus I can disperse camp off in the woods here, and the only sign of where I set up is a slight impression on the plants. And in an alpine environment, I'm careful about that. In the Sierra Nevada, people set up in meadows because they're used to low altitude camping. And it kills the grass, and then you have a bare spot in the sand for years after that. But someplace like this, the vegetation, you're not really going to do any harm to it. More likely to do harm to your tent. And I'm not leaving trash. I'm not starting a campfire. I'm not leaving a pile of needles or anything, or women's underwear, both of which seem to be a major hobby in this section of Indiana. Speaking of walking through the rural areas, I was talking to Sharon and Todd and saying I had been to, Indonesia and Thailand, in areas where there's trash all over. And it's hard not to look at that and go, I'm glad my country isn't like that. And then you come out here and you walk kind of a lot of these more rural areas, and you realize that it's just a human nature thing. I mean, we're just as bad, if not worse. It's just we're so spread out. and then you come around the corner and a whole bunch of people have dumped like tires and plastic bottles into a ditch. I mean, I have lost count of how many houses I've gone by that just had piles of trash, old cars, everything. And sometimes I thought they had to be just derelict, but then I'd have somebody like shamble out the front door, and people just live that way sometimes. And I mean, you see trash in cities also. I see a lot of smaller trash in cities. I see a lot more piles of things outside, but part of that is city services are going around and picking things up versus out here, unless somebody really decides they want to do a nice thing. It's not like there's an Adopt the Highway program out in rural Ohio. It has actually, along with living in a van where we had a very small trash can that we had to manually empty all the time, made me a lot more sensitive to just how much trash we generate. And it is a losing cause. I mean, I have seen one or two people say, you know, they were hiking to do like zero trash, but that is almost impossible. There's just no way. You don't have access to the sort of stores you need. You know, you can't find Sprouts or any of those places with the bulk barrels. And even buying bigger packages, you still are going through a lot of trash. I do what I can. You know, obviously I do have to repackage some things, but when I'm asking for water fill-ups from people, they often offer me these little water bottles. You know, it's not even the liter size water bottles, it's the tiny ones. And to fill me up, it would take like 5 of those. So whenever possible, I say, oh, no, I've got my own bottles. Do you have a way you can like fill that up? Unless they say, oh, no, do not drink the tap water here. It's not safe. That's how Carl died last week. Well, the good news is it doesn't really matter that my clothing was wet this morning because I have already re-soaked everything. Humidity. I really got to figure out how many miles it is to the 100th meridian. There are some nice spots back here. I wouldn't mind camping in this section. Well, that was odd. Just ran across an old guy in his underwear. So granted, with how humid it is, I have been thinking if I was at least off in the woods like the AT, I might be stripped down. Kind of a bad look to be wandering through small towns looking like a homeless guy and be in your underwear. Coolest sign on the bloody trail, and that's basically where I leave it. So now I'm dropping down to the road, and should be a nice, humid, sweltering road walk for the rest of the day. And sweet cobweb-free pavement. Just like the good old days, hiding out behind gas stations in the shade, eating pizza and Coke. This trail seems to be consistent in that whenever I'm hiking into a big town, I am not going to like the road that you'd use. Well, this is going to be a fun 10 miles. I've been cooking out here, but hasn't been much in the way of brake stops, and I don't want to prolong this section any longer than I absolutely have to. Okay, normally I'd be trying for a complete resupply, but I'm going to get the wipes that don't fall apart and fuel here. And then try and buzz on into New Albany. I don't know how good a neighborhood I'm going to be going through. Don't want to end up in a Parkersburg situation. Okay, quick and dirty. Enough to get through another 30 miles or so, and I'll just supplement along the way. And all hail Walmart, the land of mobility, scooters, and acceptance, because no matter what, you go in there on your worst or weirdest day, there's always going to be somebody who looks more of a freak show than you. Okay, 6:45. I've got my consumables and my necessities. I've got another day's worth of food, and now I'm just running like hell towards New Albany. I think there is a hotel in 5 or 6 miles. I am hoping this isn't the sort of town where you don't want to be walking through after XYZ hour, but we shall see. Oh, the people around here are amusing the hell out of me. People's reactions to what I'm doing, people asking if I'm walking across the world. This neighborhood has gotten a little more shaky. Okay, another 2-ish miles. For most of today, I was walking a line with traffic very, very close, so haven't been able to do that much research, but it looks like it's going to take me too long to get out of the civilized section, and I'm not overly comfortable stealth camping near a big town. There's actually some sort of historical B&B here, but between the two, honestly, I'd rather be in a hotel. A little more privacy versus being in a single creaky room with lots of other people on the floor. This is really making me want to go paddle the Ohio. Okay, that ended up being a good day with an efficient afternoon. But I am glad that one section is over with. Every bloody person I talk to, whenever I say what I'm doing, hiking across, their comment is always, oh, it's gonna be warm. So yes, hotel again, but I'm hoping this will be the last one for at least a couple of days. But it is what it is, just depends how it divides up.